Welcome all the distinguished speakers and participants to Responsible AI for Social Empowerment Race 2020, a global summit on artificial intelligence organized by the Government of India. As you are aware, this summit was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, on 5th October. This summit hosts around 40 sessions on contemporary topics on AI. It has participation of AI experts, domain experts, practitioners, policymakers, thought leaders, research scholars, startups, and young minds across the globe. The rapid advancement of technology, such as artificial intelligence and robotics, has impacted all industries, including the education domain. AI provides teachers and learners with innovative ways to understand the learner's progress, as well as allowing for a fast, personalized, target curation of content, improves learning and learners' development, as well as the educator's performance, by significantly reducing administration time. In this, are we live? Are we okay?
Yes, sir, we are live, but Shalini ma'am's...
Yeah, some presentation, sharing has come in, so if we can request. Okay. So in this session on, so welcome back. So in this session on leveraging AI for learning, we shall explore how AI can drive efficiency, personalization, and streamline admin tasks to allow teachers the time and freedom to provide understanding and adaptability, which are uniquely human capabilities where machines would struggle. With this, I welcome all the distinguished speakers to join the current session, which has been structured as follows. At the beginning, we will have two keynote addresses of about 20 minutes each, followed by a panel discussion of about 60 minutes with question and answers for 10 minutes. And at the end, we will have a demo of AI in education for 10 minutes. For taking this session forward, today we have an expert dignitaries from various fields, whom I would like to introduce. Ms. Shalini Kapoor is an IBM Fellow and Director, India Software Labs. She is one of the keynote speakers for this session and also one of the panel speakers. Throughout an IBM career that spans more than 23 years, Shalini has personified the expression doing well by doing good. As a leading responsible steward of technology, Shalini is committed to the principle that technology and business must deliver benefits to society as a whole. Our second keynote speaker, who will be having a recorded video from him on this session, is Mr. Vijay Mallya, Managing Director, Intel India, Sales, Marketing and Communications Group. He is passionate about making a difference. Equipped with international sales and marketing experience and a proven track record of building successful business relationships, leading cross-cultural teams, defining strategy and delivering compelling results with due emphasis on operational excellence. Moving on to the panel discussion, our moderator for the session today is Mr. Shrikant Sinha, who is the CEO at Telangana Academy for Skills and Knowledge. As we are aware, Mr. Sinha is a champion of the cause of collaborative CSR, leader in tech for good space. He is passionate about bridging the digital divide and promoting grassroots innovations. Among the speakers for the session, we have with us Ms. Indrani Choudhary, who is the Chief Learning Officer, Microsoft India. She is responsible for leading the learning culture and skilling strategy for India and driving the overall program for customers, partners, employers, and future generation skilling. Next, we have Dr. Manish Kumar, who is the MD and CEO at National Skill Development Corporation. Dr. Manish is responsible for providing the strategic vision to NSDC in ensuring that the team moves cohesively towards achievement of Skill India mission and the targets. Mr. Manav Sehgal, the Head of Digital Innovation and Programs at Amazon Web Service, is heading the digital innovation and programs for India and Southeast Asia customers of AWS in government, education, public sector units, non-profit, healthcare and GovTech startups. Finally, we have Dr. Yasmin Al-Haq, the UNICEF representative in India. She is very passionate about contributing towards a fair chance for every girl and every boy in India. And we are sure that she will bring in a lot of international experience in her talk. We also have a short demo which has been presented by Ms. Aditi Avasthi, founder CEO of Imbibe. With this, I invite Ms. Shalini Kapoor, IBM Fellow, Director, India Software Labs, to deliver her keynote session for this. Over to you, Shalini.
Thank you, Dr. Jaideep. That was really nice welcome that you have done to all of us. And I'm really honored to be part of very esteemed dignitaries, and representing various parts of employment and education and learning across the various organizations. So thank you for all the panelists to be here. And I'll just share my screen now so that we can go to the presentation. We'll start on AI for learning, and thanks for all the audience who is logged in to understand and this important subject. We know AI is present in multiple spheres, and we have attended sessions in the last couple of days on how AI is changing the world, and any enterprise which is not an AI enterprise will be will have to change and will have to adopt to the future. Today, we are going to talk about specifically how AI can help in the learning process. And when we say learning, it encompasses the entire education sector, the employability sector, the skills sector. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the initiatives that I have personally been involved in. I'm very passionate about how AI can be applied to learning, because as a technologist, I use AI in a lot of enterprise applications for a lot of clients. But then how can we change it for social good by applying it to education, and the learning process is what we are going to discuss today. So I'll pause, ask you to pause for a moment and just look at the next, picture that we have. This picture inspires me, so I'm sharing with each one of you, because if you see the children in this picture and the teacher, the bonding that they have with each other, and the curiosity they have just because they have a laptop in front of them. So the children are curious to know, they're curious to learn, they want to explore the world for being ready for the future. And this is what inspires me as to what can we do from a technology perspective to inspire children, to inspire students, to make them learn in a better way, so that they can mold their futures and not just have a future which is handed down to them. So that's the inspiration that I personally have, and that's why I'm sharing this picture. Now let's see what are the market shifts which have happened. The market shifts in learning specifically are that, first of all, there's a huge demand for hyper personalization. I am an economics student, and I want to know what are the right courses just for me. And I am a medium learner. I'm not a super learner. I'm a medium learner, and my language might be Tamil, and I might be from a region where I have not studied economics in 11th and 12th. So that's what my profile is. That's a persona is. So a student is a persona, and there are so many types of students that there is a need to personalize the education that we give to the student, and that personalization is so that helps and aids in the learning because it's personalized to me. And that is a big market shift which has happened. And the other is there's a huge skill gap, right? What the market needs in terms of the skills which are the employers are looking for, and what our schools or colleges are preparing us for, there is a gap between them. Of course, there are universities and there are colleges who are really ramping up, bringing up new courses, but there's still a gap because the market is moving so fast. So that dynamism is there. And the third part is the boundaries of technology are changing. COVID-19 has taught us that there are no boundaries to technology. People just move to remote things, and what was expected for technology to do, it's absolutely changed. I mean, it's sometimes so humbling to see the videos of how teachers are adapting to technology and are ready to embrace it. But why now? Because if we don't do it, if we don't personalize, we will not cater, and our things will fall flat, because the need of the hour is personalization. And the most important thing is that the cost of failure in formalized education is very high. If we don't do it now and we fail, that itself is going to, it's unsustainable. We cannot afford to not teach our children, our high undergrads, our higher grads. We have to have a successful formalized education system, and that's what our new education policy also talks about. So the cost of failure is really high. And if we stall technology, I mean, the most important part is if we stall technology, we'll leave out the education and learners. And we saw, I mean, again, I'll come back to the COVID-19, that taking teachers along and students along, I think the best and the most important resilience I have seen is in teachers. They learned to use Zoom or WebEx or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, which they had never thought of. So until unless we enable our teachers and students, we don't want to leave them around, because that's what the future pretty much is. So how can AI help in learning? So I'm going to talk about, and my entire presentation talks about 3 areas. The first is definitely how you infuse AI for learning outcomes, because when you get into personalized learning, then you get into what's the learning outcome for that. A learning outcome for K-12 children, as well as for undergrads and higher, they're all very different. Learning outcomes for, depending on the stream, depending on my profile, whether I'm audio or visual, I like seeing pictures, or I learn by audio. I mean, there are so many variations in my profile in the learning outcomes, and there are learning outcomes which are defined that as an 8th grade student, you should have these capabilities. So individualized learning and learning outcomes are very intertwined with each other. And my second part, I'm going to focus a lot on future skills, how we are deploying future skills ready with AI. And then another part, and like what I said, the very important part are the teachers, and how we can assist teachers in achieving this goal. So AI can help all these 3 areas pretty well, and I'm going to give you examples of how we have done it in various, and in some places, guiding principles as to how we can do. And as an ecosystem, we all can work together to make this happen. Every place we don't have answers, but we will definitely strive to get those answers. So AI for personalized learnings, and we have been working with a lot of schools, colleges across the globe, and we have been creating machine learning models to create curated journey for each student. Like I mentioned as an example of an economics student, a second-year economics student needs to have curated courses which are the best courses, so that the student is not going all over and saying, oh, I need to do this course, I have these 5 books, I have to do only these 5 books. So the education material is vast these days. So we need to have curated journeys and ML models created specific for the learning for each and every student. The other part is learning outcome based recommendation on courses. So if the learning outcome is, say, to know about, say, data science, for example, right? So the recommendation might be a Python course, but the recommendation might be also a statistical course, or a course in of application of that in financial domain. So the recommendation is engine, and that is a very AI based, is something which can tell an economic student to also learn agrarian economics, or to learn say psychology, because that's how the people behave. So the learning outcomes based recommendation engines, and there's very good research and very good models available, and we have seen them having a lot of good outcomes when we deployed it for students. And the other part is a blended learning. Blended learning is also a similar example which I gave, where a student of economics also wants to know agrarian economics or some course in microeconomics, and national education policy says that a student of math can know music as well, and they should be encouraged, which is not there in our current education system. A math student is a math student, a music student is a music student. So when you do blended learning, then based on my profile, whether as a math I like music, or do I like dance, or do I like say drawing, the blended learning has to be brought together, and that AI models can help us because they can map our profile, they can map what we will need. So similar kind of recommendations you see on you see maybe on YouTube, Netflix, based on choices that we do, based on interests that we have. But imagine the same thing being applied to education and for a student or learner as to what courses to do. And the last part is the AI-based intelligent search engine, which is the best course for me, and you're able to search so that you don't get lost. The second part which I want to get is the future skills readiness. And I'm going to spend some time on this because I personally spent a lot of time here to see how students can get the right skills. And I'm going to talk about some of the national priorities for skilling India. And as at IBM, we are doing several programs to do this. So we do programs with for K-12 students as well as for undergrad and higher education. And we have partnered with Niti Aayog, with CBSE, with MHRD, with Ministry of Skills Development. And we have had programs in which we are working across the personas of students, like right from we recently had Atal Innovation Mission students visit us, and the youngest student was like 12 years old. So right from 12 years till 25 years, that's the age in which the maximum learning is happening, and the people are in various kinds of schools or ITIs or undergrad colleges. And so we have partnered, and we have brought in a lot of platforms and courses, mentoring platforms, face-to-face trainings, and we have given internships to a lot of students to visit our labs and work with us on machine learning models, on chatbots, on various aspects of AI, and we have catered to thousands of students. So we are catering to the national priorities of skilling and imparting AI skills to the students. I'll talk about some of the projects in details, and specifically on the work that we are doing with the CBSE. As you all know, a lot of thousands of schools in India are on CBSE and also outside India. So we have launched, as IBM, we have launched AI curriculum for grade 11 and 12. And when we went, we launched this with Anita Karwar ma'am, and now Dr. Manoj is the chairman, is a CBSE chairman, and we are working with him. And one very important part which we did was that we said we'll not introduce AI only for math or STEM students, because a commerce student also needs to understand the fundamental of AI. A humanities students also need to know how AI can change. Maybe the humanities students goes on to become a psychologist, and how as a psychologist they can apply and understand the mind and the mental state of people is important, and how AI can help them. So we created a curriculum which is understanding AI for everybody, not just for maths and science. And we are very particular that if there are some math concepts and they are only at basic maths level at 10 standard, which we use, so that it doesn't become overwhelming, and anybody can take that course in 11th and 12th. And another important part which we stressed on was the storytelling through data. So you have data with you, and can you apply critical thinking and design thinking and then convey that message? Because that's the part which gets missed out in AI. You just look at the models, you see what models are doing great, you have a great answer, but you are not able to tell the story behind it and as a and learn more from this. So whether you're a bio student, you're a medical student, or you want to do biosciences, chemical sciences, you need to know what the impact of AI is and what kind of use cases it can be, how it can help you. So these are the hands-on exercises that we took, and also explaining to them on responsible AI and ethics of AI, so that at a very young age they understand that. So our attempt has been to create informed citizens, take it to multiple schools, and we have done several hackathons with the students to enable this. So this is our attempt to skill students in AI. And then we have more programs like with the Ministry of Skills Development and Entrepreneurship, where we work with the ITI faculty to make them ready and make them more employable so that they have the right placements. We have also opened up Open PTech. Open PTech was a very successful program in US with thousands of course material, and it has been enrolled into multiple thousands of schools in US. So in US, it's a very good, interesting concept. If as a student you do not want to get into degree courses, but there are organizations who are ready to employ you, you can go to an Open PTech school, get the skills, not necessarily the degree in the sense the board exam, you need to cross it, but you can still have the skills. So we use the same courses. Of course, in India, we still have the system of doing 12th and having a degree of bachelor's, but we are using pretty much the same courses. We have opened up a learning platform, and we are teaching AI and design thinking. And the best part is, we have partnered with a National Skills Development Corporation onto this, and Dr. Manish is here from there, and it's a very good partnership that we have done with NSTC. Another thing that we are doing is for the STEM challenge. So we are running a big STEM challenge for girls, where we are educating hundreds and thousands of girls, and we are catering to them across all the schools. And because there are very few girls in STEM, there are the global average is still higher, India average is definitely is very less, and they drop out, there's lack of motivation, there's low retention. So we have signed up with 10 states, and there we are talking about AI principles to them. We are talking about technology principles as well, but we are seeding the thoughts of AI and design thinking, so that the girls can feel inspired, irrespective of whether they pick up this STEM at a later stage. But then AI is for all, it's not necessarily for STEM. So the AI concepts are being seeded into girls. The third part which I want to discuss about is that how do we help teachers in reaching higher and helping the students. So here what we are doing is we are using a Watson platform, because it can talk, it can listen, it can read, it can chat, it can see literally all the senses that we have, and we are building AI systems which understand what if we have can we talk in natural language, can we have a dialogue, can we have insights put together of students and their learning patterns and learn from that. So the data is extremely important in this. It cannot happen if we don't have data, because otherwise an AI system pretty much fails. So to be able to have this interaction, we are using our Watson system. We have a couple of products, and we work with a lot of universities across the globe. We have Teacher Advisor. Teacher Advisor uses AI to help math teachers meet the individual learning need of each student. Watson Assistant helps in conversational computing. It can universities and colleges and schools can have an assistant available to students at any point of time. And of course, we can use reasoning and have proper answer of questions through a corpus. So this kind of helps in a lot of online distance coaching and academic advisory services. So it's an aid to the teacher. It's not a replacement to the teacher. Again, it's important that you have aids available to teachers so that they can reach out to more students. And we know the teacher-student ratio is sometimes so low that you need aids to move ahead. The Teacher Advisor with Watson has had a very large impact. And these are, of course, statistics of US, but I thought it's important that we share that it has been successful because of its corpus of information and knowledge that is present, and we are now rolling it out in India to a lot of teachers, and asking them to leverage it, and especially in these pandemic times. So if you see, and I'll sum up my discussion, that a student's journey, 15 years ago, they started, just classroom training, e-learning. Of course, some of our, if we look at our remote villages or our remote cities, they are still maybe at this stage. They are at the automating stage. They are still learning to get to enhance the e-learning mechanisms itself. The blended learning concepts, even those are starting. So it's a journey for a student, right? So you start with automation, you start with reaching out to the students, you start with getting them comfortable with blended learning, with web lectures, with mobile learning, maybe have mentor platform connected to them so that they can be with their mentors. And then over a period of time, there is a lot of engagement that you want from the student. You want any channel, you want multiple channels, you want all the resources to be available, you want to do analytics as to how the students are coming in. Can we predict, can we have predictive learning outcomes? Can we have better dashboards, virtual labs? So it doesn't take time from people to go, it doesn't take 15 years now. And let's be very frank, there are so many places, so many schools who started e-learning like 6 months back, and they're already doing virtual labs today, because COVID and the pandemic actually leapfrogged and made the learning of the learners so fast and dynamic enough. But what we need to understand is that there are various technology interventions, and AI can help in each one of them. Whether it is LMS, whether it is simulations, virtual worlds, mobile learning, gamification, in everywhere, AI is an aid. It is not a threat. It is an aid which can give better mobility, simulate anywhere learning, and help in this entire process. And so if we see a student, right, and if we see a higher education student, I mean, my earlier example was for a general, for any student, but if we see our education, a student with a university, whether they select university, whether they onboard and orient, the course selection, the placement, everything is where the student is sharing that I need help with my university administration. I want to be well, I want to be happy doing the courses, I want to be successful. So this entire journey, as well as the student says, what about my credits? Where are my credits? So, do you have a system where the credits can be transferred from one university to the other? And that's what the National Education Policy also talks about. So this entire mechanism is possible through AI, and AI can aid in interaction, in putting the learning systems, in putting the feeling systems, in putting the insights, and in putting the personalization and the recommendation engine in place. So I'll pause with this, and I'll thank you. And I know we have a big and interesting panel discussion coming up. And I look forward to interacting with each one of you on these topics.
Thank you, Shalini, for sharing such insightful thoughts on the subject over this platform. The slide on the children with their teacher and the smiling faces around the computer was really inspiring. The point that you mentioned about acting now to avoid the costs of failure is very pertinent. And you also mentioned how AI is playing the critical role in all the three dimensions: the teachers, the students, the schools, and also the importance of curation that AI enables and personalized learning. And finally, I think you brought on to the point of future skilling and all, which is so relevant here. So thank you for setting the high level tone for this entire session that we are doing. And thank you very much. So next we have a video recorded message. It's sort of a keynote from Mr. Prakash Mallya, the Managing Director for Intel India. And so let's have the presentation from him.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor and privilege to be at the RACE 2020 conference this year. And I wish all of you and your families the very best. Normally, we would have had this conference face-to-face, but this is what technology enables, which is also very fascinating. And I look forward to staying connected with you even after this conference. The topic about AI for learning is very important, very relevant, and also truly transformational for the country, in my view. And it's a purpose that is very closely aligned with the purpose for Intel. As Intel, our purpose really is to create world-changing technology to enrich the lives of every person on Earth. And that is why I feel both these, the purpose of RACE 2020 conference, as well as purpose for Intel, is so closely aligned with each other. So it's a great privilege to be here. And I want to cover three areas broadly in my session. One, how do I see India longer term? Second, how does tools like AI help the cause of transforming the country? And last is, what is Intel doing in the space of supporting and accelerating the journey of country's transformation? So let me get started. One could say that we are right in the midst of uncertainty. And this pandemic has thrown open so many different ways that we could not have envisaged future to unfold. But at the same time, that future, in my view, is a significant opportunity too. An opportunity to create a digitally enabled, transformed, truly inclusive India. And as I stare ahead into the future, there are four big trends that I see shape that vision for transformed India. So let me touch on each one of them. The first is everything being cloudified, which really means cloud becomes the accepted service delivery model. You've already started seeing that happen in digital payments, or you've also started seeing that in any form of service delivery in the past few years. And this trend is only going to accelerate. Forrester data suggests that 76% of the global CEOs feel their business model is going to get transformed because of one single trend, that is cloud. And this bodes really well for a country like India, because through cloud, you can deliver services to any part of the country, any demographic, whether you are in a small town or a big town. So game changing. And that brings me to the second trend where I'm talking about ecosystem diversified. What do I mean by that? And I will give you a single example of it. There are many more examples of how a diversified ecosystem will look like. Let me do a startup journey for India. We have 1,600 deep tech startups in the country, and they are growing at the rate of 40% since 2014. And the fact is that this startup community is going to continually push the boundaries on what's possible, not only solve the problems for the country, but solve the problems for the world. Given the fact that we are such a big software talent house, digital talent country as well. So significant opportunity for us to shape the journey through these innovations, not only for the country, but also for the world. And that brings me to the third trend, where I'm talking about workplace fluidized. What do I mean by that? It essentially is one part, which we said, the software talent, the digital capabilities, 4.2 million developers in the country, one of the largest anywhere in the world, combined with the trend of working from anywhere that got accelerated because of COVID, will mean that fast forward into the future, you will have jobs getting to talent wherever they're located versus the other way around. So you can find companies hire talent not only in the big city, but also in the small cities. Gig economy or informal working models accelerate as well. And that again is not only solving the problems for India. The same talent can solve problems for the entire world. And that's where skills, capabilities like AI become extremely crucial for a country like India. And if you bring all of these three trends together, the foundation or the building block for it would be what I call infrastructure localized. And that infrastructure would be 5G network. It could be AI and data network. It could also be built on top of the data infrastructure that's already set in place, whether it's Aadhaar, whether it's GST, or whether it's UPI for digital payments. Let me give you a couple of examples for that. The National Digital Health Mission, which is a vertical specific data-centric infrastructure as an example, that the innovation can come together on. That startups or big companies can build solutions and products and platforms on top of. You say that happen in digital payments. You will absolutely start seeing that happening in areas like healthcare, areas like agriculture, or a variety of different verticals, including places like education. So if you bring all of these together, whether it's everything being on the cloud, the ecosystem being diversified, workforce being really fluid, operating from anywhere, and on top of a local infrastructure, you really are creating a transformed India, and India enabled by technology. And that's what really gets me excited, because this India will not be formed by a single company or a set of companies. It will be formed by the collaboration across the board of government, private sector, individuals, as well as large and small companies. So everybody together, we can shape this journey of transforming the country. And when you look at that, the second point in it is, how are we contributing as Intel towards the vision of a transformed and inclusive India? Intel has been strongly committed to India. In fact, we are 22 years in this country. And during that time frame, we have contributed in a variety of different ways. Let me give you a few examples. Number one, the R&D capability. We have close to $6 billion invested over the last couple of decades. And the R&D and capabilities that exist in the design facility here span SoC design, AI, IoT, 5G network, cloud and data center. It's a great testament to the skills and talent in India. The second point is about the initiatives that we have engaged on in times like COVID, going back to our purpose of creating world-changing technology to enrich the lives of every person on earth. And technology has played such a vital role in times of COVID. So we announced a pandemic response technology initiative, and we supported that through $50 million fund for global efforts. And we utilized that initiative in the country to engage with the industry. So for example, with NASSCOM, we collaborated as part of the task force, put together a pandemic response platform that not only caters to pandemic like COVID that we are facing, but responses to future such environments or situations that the country will face. Because the next pandemic is not whether it'll happen or not, it'll be a question of when. So the country needs to be prepared. And those are the initiatives that we have really focused on. There are also times where we have collaborated very closely with the government on public-private initiative. A great example of that is Government of India and Intel collaborating on a model of International Center for Transformative AI, which is focused on AI-led research projects. The other example, and makes a lot more impact in COVID times, are initiatives like PC Pathshala in the area of education, which is a cross-industry initiative to help parents, teachers, and students make the most of virtual learning environment that we are all faced with today. And last but not the least is the impact that we are trying to create with an initiative called AI for Youth. And AI in the curriculum is early stage globally. We are all trying to figure it out, but there's no question that tools like AI can really equip, really skill the student community as well as the industry at large on a global basis to do far more and far diverse set of things as compared to what they could do earlier. So there are a few milestones we have achieved in the initiative called AI for Youth, which is a 4-stage experiential journey Let me touch on some of what we have achieved. One, we have collaborated very closely with Government of India and Ministry of Education to create a model of scaling the curriculum within the framework of the CBSE schools. And to date, we have achieved 80,000 youth getting trained across 8th, 9th, and 10th grades on tools and technologies of AI. That helps them build the skill sets, the right mindset, and the right objectives on what kind of initiatives can AI be directed towards. Another example is in partnership of Ministry of Electronics and IT, we have launched an initiative of responsible AI for youth. It is a nationwide program, and that program is targeting over 50,000 students that have registered across 35 states and union territories. And in fact, over 10,000 students have already finished the first level of AI training. That tells you the sense of impact the initiative is creating. And last but not the least, we have also inaugurated an AI Skills Lab in Kendriya Vidyalaya, New Delhi. And it was inaugurated by Honorable President of India in February of this year. So across the board, if you look at our initiative of skill building in tools and technologies like AI, our objective is to create impact. Because India is one of the youngest countries in the world. And through tools and right skill sets and mindsets related to AI, that young demographic can really create significant impact and intersect the trajectory of the transformed India and get it there faster. Let me give you one example of what that means. Here is an example of initiative creating impact. This is a 10th grade student as a part of AI for Youth initiative, and she built a happiness guru platform, which is an evidence of achievement. And what does it do? It really is, the solution can predict the onset of depression among students. And they use computer vision technologies to do that. But it doesn't stop there. Using tools like natural language processing, what it's doing is it can also initiate a chat with the students. And you can engage in that chat and drive analytics at the accuracy rate of 70%. This is a 10th grade student based on all the training on tools and technologies related to AI. If one student can have this kind of an impact, think about what if you train hundreds and thousands of students in this country? What could be that impact? That scale could be monumental. And in fact, this particular student wants to become AI ethics lawyer. What a great example of impact of society created by technology. And I will end with saying that we are really excited to be here at RAISE 2020 conference. It's a tall order and great leadership by Government of India to really set the stage as a country on how it would support the cause of AI and the purpose AI solves for in India. And we are truly looking forward to collaborating with Government of India as well as the rest of the industry to bring that vision to reality. And the reason why I say that is this pandemic has exposed several challenges within our entire humanity, I would say. Not only in India, every part of the world, it has exposed several challenges. But at the same time, this is also a great opportunity for us to come together and solve business challenges or societal challenges that we could individually not solve, that would push the boundaries of what we collectively thought was possible. But together we can make it happen. So that's why I look forward to engaging very closely with you and bring that vision of transformed India to reality.
Thank you, Prakash. It was a very interesting presentation, I think, and you briefly highlighted the various aspects. I think you mentioned about the 4 key dimensions that are there, which are playing a critical role in transforming India. in the inclusiveness also and all, and the emphasis that you put on the cloudifying the entire operations and moving on to a new total game changer that you indicated. You also highlighted about the collaborations between the government, the private sector, the industry and all, and that is the way forward. And I think what was very interesting in your entire presentation, besides you gave from Intel's perspective also, and the practical, the real examples, the projects, the implementations that the organization is involved in along with the government, the happiness guru that you indicated, mentioned, and the 10th grader that you indicated has been able to create something which is of so much value. I'm sure there is a lot of learnings from this entire presentation. So thank you very much. So now we'll move on to the panel discussion part of it. And I would invite Mr. Shrikant Sinha, the Chief Executive Officer at Telangana Academy, to take over as the moderator for our session. So over to you, Shrikant. You have about 60 minutes, including your Q&A portion. So please, on the.
Thank you very much, Jaideep ji. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed panel members. At the outset, I would like to compliment the organizers, MeitY, Niti Aayog, and NEGD for RACE 2020 and providing me with an opportunity to orchestrate this panel of such eminent, knowledgeable people on a subject which is close to a lot of people. The post-last session always is called as the graveyard session, but let me assure you that not only will this session keep you awake, but also you'll have a lot of takeaways from the session. 2 years ago, I got an opportunity to meet up with Sophie and its creator, David. I asked David if Alan Turing, the father of AI, met Sophie, what they would be discussing about. And he said the endless possibilities of AI. One of the main pillars is AI and learning. And I would like to compliment the organizers for taking this important point and doing a session on this. If I look at our present education system itself, I think it can be easily explained by one simple equation. Education is equal to cramming / rote learning. Now this has to change, and that is where the role of AI comes into picture, where education is now changing to learning itself. If you look at both the words, education and learning, both have AI in it, if you spell the word. And that's where education and learning include AI. If we look at the journey of Telangana itself, as mentioned by our Honorable Principal Secretary today morning, Telangana has declared year 2020 as year of AI, and a lot of projects have been run under that. If you look at TASK, which is a body created for creating employable skills for the youth of Telangana, we ourselves have trained more than 10,000 people along with Intel, NASSCOM, and other partners on AI, especially in the area of introduction to AI and working with AI. We also have Emerging Technologies Division, which is looking at AI as well as other technologies and ensuring that the youth of Telangana are aware about it. If we look at the keynotes of both the speakers, and let me compliment both of them on bringing out some very, very relevant topics. The main focus has been how do you democratize learning, and some of the use cases that they discussed was more in terms of real-time text-to-speech. And Jaideep ji, you will remember during my previous tenure, the technology for development in Indian languages is one of the projects we worked together on. I think there's a huge place for that also. Chatbots, automated grading, supervised classification models to reduce dropouts, AR, VR, mixed reality, extended reality as it's called now, virtual labs. If I keep on going on, I think there'd be a whole lot of such things that we could talk about. So let me start with the panel itself due to a paucity of time, and let me go on to Dr. Manish Kumar to start with, who is the CEO of NSDC. So Manish ji, NSDC being the apex skilling standards organization in the country, how and where is AI being adopted and strengthening the learning process? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think AI, the way things are evolving is being adopted in various sectors. We have seen it having intersectoral implications. And also it's incidentally because our skilling, usually we match it to the requirement of the industry. What we are finding is that there are jobs which are actually emerging because of AI. Usually people have a fear that AI will actually lead to loss of jobs, and that's also happening. But new types of jobs are emerging too. So I'll just give you an example of how that's happening. As an example, the driverless cars in California are actually run by some of the girls sitting in Bhubaneswar. In centers that we have created, they get trained there, and thereafter they do data entry. It's the data entry that goes to cloud, which Shalini was talking about, and in clouds, eventually, when let's say a motor vehicle actually goes in a particular street in California, is drawing data from cloud, and usually what these girls are doing is watching a picture in a computer and then marking, basically showing which is the median of the road, what is the speed limit of that particular road, where is a lamppost. So it's a picture with that tagging, and this has the power thereafter to be converted into machine intelligence, and then leading to, let's say, running of a driverless cars, which is obviously AI based. So now these kind of interesting things are occurring. We also find some of our partners, like I can name specifically Talent Sprint in Hyderabad, which has used AI in a big way in personalized learning. They do various kind of coachings and various kind of teachings that they do mostly in financial sector. And every individual is taught by a virtual teacher. They call the teacher Tia, T-I-A, Tia. And this virtual lady essentially could teach maybe 100 people, some in different parts of the country, at the same time, but to everyone, she's speaking different language. I mean, she's teaching them differently because they have mapped out what is it which is the personal need of that person. Similarly, we use an app called KNACK, K-N-A-C-K. It's actually developed by a behavioral economist from Harvard. And that app, which is language agnostic, is like a game. You take it down on your mobile, you play it for about 20 minutes, and it decomposes your personality into about 60, 70 different traits. And what we use it for is to understand that if somebody, let's say, wants to go to healthcare job, does he have the empathy level which will enable him to succeed there? So you can see AI is being used in various ways, and we use it like a tool, depending upon our need. Besides the fact that we have created qualification packs, national occupation standards that are targeted towards the hardcore AI itself, learning AI per se, so that you can get into the industry. And the NASCOM and ITS Sector Skill Council have helped us develop that. But apart from that, the AI is leading to, I think, multiple other opportunities. That's the fascinating thing about it. And we are quite, we've got a team actually which works on future of jobs. We have a future skill platform actually being operated by ITS Sector Skill Councils, which has a lot of job roles that are relevant across sectors, based on AI, based on automation, based on cybersecurity and various other trends that are emerging. And also eSkill India platform, where we have more than 600 training modules at the moment, 60% of them free of cost. Besides partnership that we have developed over time with IBM, with LinkedIn, with BetterU, with Sailor Academy and various others. So it's a fascinating time when it comes to AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Manishi. That is very encouraging to know that, and especially when you spoke about the new types of job emerging, I think most important is, and as you said, 600 plus modules being there on your platform for the youth to actually take advantage of it. It was interesting to see that, talk about when you spoke about TIA, and how the girls in Orissa are helping. I think it's indeed a fascinating world. So let me move on to our next panelist now. We all know that AI is impacting almost every part of our lives, and in many cases, the impact would be maximum on the children itself, right? So right from their early childhood to the services that they will be able to access, the way they would learn, and the jobs that Manishji spoke about, how they are changing and what jobs they would be doing and how they would be training for them. So Dr. Yasmin, let me move on to you, since you are the representative of UNICEF over here, to share with us some of the initiatives that UNICEF, along with its partner organization, is taking, with programs like Generation AI, Yuva, and others.
Thank you so much, Shrikant, and thank you to all the panelists and really interesting presentations from Shalini and our colleague from Intel. UNICEF's work more and more is focusing on AI because of three key issues. One, using AI is needed to accelerate issues for children by prototyping, scaling solutions, and that allow us to adapt to much faster to the growing needs of children. The second is that we need to bring children to the center of the future of AI. As you said, while there are many uncertainties around AI, we know that it will impact almost every part of our lives. And in many cases, the impacts will be greatest on children. And third, we have to ensure that every child, every girl, every boy, everywhere can benefit from the potential of AI so that we can provide young people with information, skills, and services that they need to shape the future they want, and use artificial intelligence in creating those opportunities to accelerate development. So I'll talk about two key initiatives. One is Generation AI and the second is Yuva. Generation AI is a global initiative of UNICEF through which we're seeking to work together with a diverse set of partners, including the World Economic Forum, UC Berkeley, Article 1, Microsoft, and others, to set and lead the global agenda on AI and children. Through that, outlining the opportunities and challenges, as well as engaging stakeholders to build AI-powered solutions that really help realize and uphold child rights. Just last month, Generation AI released policy guidance on AI for children, drawing on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And this policy outlines 9 requirements based on the foundations of how AI policies and systems should aim to protect children, to provide equitably for their needs and rights, and to empower them to participate in an AI world by contributing to the development and use of AI. So we really intend to work here in India with Niti Aayog, incorporating these guidelines into the national framework for AI and AI for all strategy, really to understand and inform child-centered initiatives. And for me, this platform of RAISE 2020 really provides a great opportunity for us to bring this together. The second is Yuva, which is the India chapter of a global initiative which we call GenU, or Generation Unlimited. And Shrikant, you were there with us last year in November when we launched, along with the government, a national multi-stakeholder partnership to advance young people's agency, aspirations, civic engagement, leadership, and socioeconomic empowerment. The big idea is that by 2030, we would together, along with civil society organizations and other multilateral agencies, build pathways to aspirational socioeconomic opportunities for 100 million young people. Second, to facilitate 200 million young people gain relevant skills for the productive lives. And the third is really to partner with 300 million young people themselves as change makers and create the spaces for developing their leadership. As we traverse these priorities for young people, we are seeing a lot of uptake and benefits from the career guidance and social entrepreneurship initiatives that we are working on. We already have a partnership with state governments to set up career guidance portals in 9 states, reaching more than 1.5 crore students. We have also launched 2 social innovation challenges for young people that have seen more than 1,500 entries from pan-India, including one where school students developed an algorithm to bust fake news on coronavirus, a very timely initiative indeed. So how can we leverage emerging technologies to see exponential growth in these areas? And really, we do look to partnering with METI, with agencies like Intel and IBM, because there are three areas that are really important. One, like Shalini was talking a lot about, how do we use artificial intelligence to support personalized career guidance at scale to secondary school students and beyond, while building stronger market linkages. And here, just to give us a grain of reality, we know that only a third of all the secondary schools, about 2.6 million of them, have a functioning IT lab with a functioning computer. So the challenge is huge. Taking it to scale, we all need to come together. The second is, can we visualize an AI mentor for every young person who will provide customized inputs and skills recommendations or counseling for every youth of the country? And this is where working with NSDC and the Ministry of Youth Affairs is also a crucial part of that journey. And then third, using AI, how can we reduce information asymmetry for young social change makers, especially when we know that only 700 million Indians are connected to the internet. And when we start looking at young people, and especially girls, the divide based on their location, their socioeconomic situation widens, the gap keeps widening. But how do we reduce that asymmetry? Because we often have great ideas and passion for problem solving from these young people. But the lack of resources doesn't help them take it that next step. So using AI, can we create an Uber-like network of problems, opportunities, and resources so that we can connect to relevant interests of young people at every local level? So I'll stop there for now, Shrikant.
Thanks, Yasmin. That is very interesting. Uberization of problems and solutions. This is something which is very, very interesting. And actually, if you look at it, whatever you spoke about, personalized learning, I think that's the holy grail of learning process itself, and AI also. And thanks for also helping us understand, how counseling, in the process of counseling, how AI is being used. Thanks, Dr. Yasmin. Now, if I move to a gentleman who needs no introduction, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, said, and I quote, "We want to pursue democratization of AI just like we pursued information at your fingertips." And after listening to Laura speak yesterday in one of the inaugural sessions yesterday, we did get a glimpse of what Microsoft is doing in the field of AI in general. But Indrani, it'd be good for us to understand how AI can be used as a technology to support educational institutions across the country for learning. So over to you, Indrani.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for having me in Race 2020. I think it was a wonderful session so far, a lot of insights, and I hope to take away more insights after the end of the session. Now, answering your question, I think AI in the classroom was relatively a new concept, one that was being explored by researchers and educators alike. However, COVID-19, as we heard Shalini also speak, that it accelerated digital transformation, and what we were discussing for decades is now what we are doing at scale. So Microsoft's mission is to empower every organization and every individual on the planet to achieve more. And aligned to our mission, let's look at some of the use cases for how Microsoft's customers and partners are using AI technology in supporting and streamlining the education system. So at an institutional level, schools and colleges increasingly rely on algorithms for marketing to prospective students, estimating class size, planning curriculum, and allocating resources. There is much potential for AI to create more efficient enrollment as well as admission processes by automating classification and processing of paperwork. And in fact, AI has come to the rescue of educators by automating the admin tasks, freeing up time from the teachers to spend more with students, what they like to do, what they are passionate about. The other application of AI which we are seeing growing use is actually in student support systems. So educational institutes are now utilizing AI and machine learning in student guidance. So some applications, it can actually help students decide which courses to take up, which career paths to choose, what traditionally, a career counselor would have done. And these tools are actually making these recommendations based on how students with similar data profiles performed in the past. And I think another prominent use again for student support is the predictive analytics itself through AI, because it can actually identify the students who are at risk of failing or dropping out. And it's not done by just reviewing to some couple of factors like CGPA and the attendance, which used to be done in the past days. Now it's analyzing wide array of data, which includes academic, non-academic, operational, and it just gives you predictive analysis and proactive measures and time for people to take corrective actions. And last but not the least, I think the entire application on instructional design itself, right? The use of AI in delivering the instructions. And we all know that students have their own unique learning style, and one size fits all is not an effective instruction strategy. Differentiated and individual learning for individual students was something which was a priority for educators for years. But AI allowed the level of differentiation that is impossible for teachers who are managing a class size of 30. And with the pandemic, the class size is only growing. It's become hundreds in some of the places, and close relatives of mine, they're like kind of having even a classroom size of 200. So given that, personalized learning will become practically next to impossible had it not been for AI, which actually evaluates the learning style of the program. There are adaptive games, softwares, programs that focuses on what is the learning need of the person and adopts the curriculum and the delivery as per the student's profile. And perhaps as AI, it's not yet real time, at least in we haven't done this in India, but as AI gets more sophisticated, I'm assuming that it would be also possible for the machine to read the language or to see the facial expression of a person struggling with a maths exercise, right? And out will come a tutor to guide that. So those are things that are being worked upon as we're just close to reality, so we should be having that very shortly. And another part again for the instructional design is to make it more inclusive and diverse. There are many softwares, or let's say the presentation translator, which is a free plugin in PowerPoint. It creates subtitles in real time to what the teacher is saying. It opens up the possibility of an educational institute to be inclusive and democratize the learning to include those who speak perhaps different languages or may have even hearing impairments. So in all, if I have to sum up, the bottom line is with the help of AI in education, we can and we are making both students and teachers' lives easier. And AI in education gives students the opportunity to receive quality education, takes the load off teachers, and individualizes the learning experience.
Thank you, Indrani. That was thanks for bringing out the points about predictive analysis and also about differentiated learning. I think these have been some of the areas where our traditional education system has been lacking, and we have been finding a lot of difficulties. You're absolutely right. If you look at the primary levels, the dropout rates are just about 4%, but as you move to the higher education, it is as high as 20%. And I personally feel that these kinds of AI technologies being used would really bring it down. Personalized chatbots, personalized tutors, of course, the role being played in instructional design on different LMSs, etc. Would really help the students as well as the teachers, and thus strengthening our youth. Moving on to another quote, which is, we are at the beginning of a golden age of AI. Recent advancements have already led to inventions that previously lived in the realm of science fiction. And we have only scratched the surface of what was possible. And this is what Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, said. And I couldn't agree with him more, because last year I was visiting my cousin for dinner in Bangalore, And my nephew realized that his dad would not help him with his homework today. So what he did was he reached out to Alexa and said, Alexa, tell me more about Tenali Rama, because that was the topic of his essay for the day. And sure enough, Alexa immediately started narrating various things about Tenali Rama, and this boy completed his entire essay assignment. And that's the fact which is happening today. Alexa, everyone knows, is an Amazon project. So, Manav, which other AI and ML based AWS programs and services actually would help augment the educator's workflow, in terms of content curation, online learning, and others? Over to you, Manav.
Thank you, Shrikant, and thank you for that lovely example to start with. So I'll talk about AWS programs first, and then come to some of the AWS AI services which are helping the educators' workflow. So in terms of programs, there is AWS Educate program, where students gain hands-on practical experience on AWS AI ML services, amongst others, including Amazon SageMaker. In fact, Atal Innovation Mission recently collaborated with Niti Aayog to launch ATL AI Step-Up module, with AI module for K-12 segment being supported by AWS Educate program, to provide a comprehensive set of advanced self-learning content as well as tools. And these are tools which are available to millions of active customers of AWS globally, which students have access to. And this initiative is expected to reach 2.5 million students and 5,000 schools in K-12 segment. So that's the impact of the programs. Now, a number of AWS AI services are used to augment educators' workflow. I'll give you an example, and if the viewers of this session can also view a website alongside, they'll relate to it better. It's cord19.aws, spelled as CORD, the numbers 1 and 9.aws, cord19.aws. So this particular service, this particular application that you will see, is using Amazon Comprehend for discovering insights and relationships in text, and Amazon Kendra, which is highly accurate and easy to use enterprise search service powered by machine learning. Using these services, we can build natural language-based search across hundreds of thousands of education and research documents with unstructured, structured content within them. As you experience the solution at cord19.aws, you can query the COVID-19 open research dataset. That's where the acronym comes from. With natural language questions, answers from Amazon Kendra, the search engine includes data which has been processed using Amazon Comprehend Medical, which understands medical terminology. Another example of using AWS services for augmenting the educator's workflow for content curation and online learning is using Amazon Sumerian to easily create and run browser-based 3D, augmented reality, virtual reality applications, along with maybe Amazon Poly and Lex, the examples that you gave. These are actually the services which power Alexa Echo devices for text to lifelike speech, conversational AI for chatbots. These services are easily available through AWS Cloud, and you can literally create virtual reality classrooms complete with online learning content, virtual learning assistants. And I'll wrap up with one of our recently launched services, which are really cool. It's called Amazon Code Guru. It's a developer tool powered by machine learning that provides intelligent recommendations for improving coding or code quality. So think of using this for teaching coding best practices to students. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Manav. Interesting examples again, and helping us understand, and probably I don't know how many people would have actually logged on to cord19.aws and looked at it. so there are a whole lot of tools, etc., and we are moving towards education for all. And as one of the panel that was happening earlier, one of the speakers was saying that we have enough people getting skilled, enough people getting trained, but the quality of education, which is also SDG 4, is a big challenge for us. So Dr. Yasmin, let me move on to you now with the second round of question, and we have about 3 to 4 minutes for each panelist to answer this. Is if you could help us understand UNICEF's goals, the global goals in learning by 2021, and what role technologies such as AI and IoT are playing in it.
Thank you. And you're right, the quality is a question. And in some cases, it's not just quality. So if I look at the UNICEF goals by 2021, which are global goals, it's three main. One is that 60 million children out of school gain access to early learning. That 93 million boys and girls are provided with individual education or early learning materials. And 79% of countries show improvements in learning outcomes for girls and boys. So these are three big blocks of goals that we aspire to. And we can only reach these ambitious targets through partnerships and collaboration with government, businesses, and communities. Now, where we are looking at the use of AI is one example is the GIGA project that uses AI to map every school in the world and their internet connectivity. And through this, we are exploring new ways to bring together global financial partners, technological experts, and business and network operators to provide internet access to all schools, no matter where they are. And we are getting ready to bring this in a number of countries around the world. This is, again, a collaboration between UNICEF and the International Technology Union. And it's really important to see that companies like Ericsson have joined in and are really supporting us in taking that forward, because we have a common shared value of enhancing education outcomes for children. What we're also trying to do in India is really look at how do we make AI a social good? And it can be a social good when we are able to use it to promote social behavior change, because we know that there is such an important role that social norms and family behavior or individual behavior is playing in achieving or not results for children. So, for example, in responsive parenting, we're trying to look at means of providing on-demand content to mothers and fathers with geolocation and preference-based targeting. And that service and content has been identified as extremely critical, with parents having to shoulder or complete more caregiving responsibility, especially in these days of COVID-19 related closures. For us, AI and Internet of Things can really leverage learning goals by maintaining and mainstreaming rather policies around humanitarian action, gender equality, so that communities and schools can be empowered to access learning opportunities, where AI and other technologies can exploit the investments that have already been made in Digital India projects, so that we can then, for example, reaching through the 250 gram panchayats to deliver critical services on demand. The vibrant technology landscape in India, particularly in the area of AI, offers us the opportunity to forge public-private partnerships, to test AI and IoT learning solutions that are developed locally, and really how we can then take them to scale, not just in India, but take the learning and the experience from India to other parts of the world where countries are facing similar situations. And finally, I'd say UNICEF together with government can generate evidence using AI and IoT to drive policies around digital learning, to empower the educational system with job aids, job tools, so that teachers and decision makers can also manage the educational services and deliver that personalized learning that we're all yearning for, including quality assurance and driving results for children and young people based on data, based on evidence.
Sorry, I was muted. The data, the new oil is actually going to make things happen. And thanks for sharing with us, the BHAG goals, if I'm permitted to use that word, 93 million children to be offered, personalized learning. And I don't think it could have been ever possible unless and until we had AI. And you mentioned about personalized learning and personalized jobs. So let me move on to Manish ji. And Manish ji, if you could help us understand, how is NSTC working on the goals of skilling or upskilling to create a AI-ready workforce for the future? That's the first part. And part B is on July 10, 2020, the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship launched the ASEEM scheme, Atmanirbhar Skilled Employer Mapping portal to help skilled people find sustainable livelihood. Can you help us understand more on both these things, sir?
Yeah, sure. On the first one, which is about doing skilling on AI and related kind of stuff, we have a network of private training partners, and across the country, they are spread out. There will be almost 9,000 of them spread across the country. And some of them are model centers, which we call Prime Minister's Kausal Vikas Yojanas. That's one for each district. And then what we look at is in different areas, we have almost 100 economic clusters within the country. In different parts of the country, there are different types of jobs which are more prevalent and therefore more relevant for youths to get trained on. We have also realized from experience that some of the jobs, which in the past were very traditional, are changing because of AI-related interventions that's coming in. And what we have done is we have what we call qualification packs for each job role. So essentially standardization of what one should teach somebody if he were to be a good, let's say, logistics person, regardless of whether he was trained in Chennai or he was trained in Nagaland, Kohima. In either case, we ensure that the competencies that are developed are similar. And within these competencies, we are embedding artificial intelligence related courses to wherever it is relevant. So just to give an example, in one particular case, in case of Gujarat, this is one of the company where they found that even the HR folks actually needed different types of training because of the AI interventions that's coming into the larger company. And the situation there was such that they had found that in a particular month, the labor, almost 20% of the labor had refused the wages. And the management obviously was concerned that this doesn't look very normal, that how come you have 20% of people not taking money. So when they went to inquire about, they found that actually these were not labor who had actually refused money. These were basically robots which had been placed out there, and because they were automating systems, and because they had a ID, they had a unique ID. So therefore, their names had actually gone, not names, but the numbers had actually gone for payment, etc. And HR had not really paid much attention because these were happening in two different parts. So therefore, they pushed the same amount of money, which the numbers seem to show that, okay, these are different grades. But what was actually happening, they found later, was that the robots had 24 hours work time. And because the robots could actually work 24 hours, the performance that they were showing was the type which they were expecting from normal human resources, which was totally impractical. So therefore, they realized that HR also needs to be retrained in this entire environment. So therefore, what we do is we push in national occupation standards into relevant job roles and ensure that there is a level of standardization that occurs on account of wherever the training is occurring on AI-related issues, that is cross-sectoral or cutting across various sectors. On the second part, which we are talking about, was that Atmanirbhar ASEEM portal that we had created. That's basically a directory of skilled worker at its base. We have skilled more than 1 crore people over time, actually more than 2 crores, about 2.5. And the names of almost 1 crore has actually been entered into that as a directory. And when people who are working want to change the jobs, they look for new job roles. They're wanting to move from one to another, upskill themselves, and perhaps looking for a new choice. That's when this portal comes to use, because at the back end of this portal are at the moment one private enterprise, but we are expecting a few more, which essentially has knowledge about the demand side. So what are the different job roles that are emerging in different parts of the country? And where could you get the type of person that the industry needs? There is an AI-based algorithm at the bottom of it for ensuring that from the demand side, the industry gets the type of person that they want. On the supply side, the effort is to ensure that the person who gets a job gets one which is closest to his home, that he doesn't have to necessarily, he or she doesn't have to necessarily travel too far away into Bangalore if he's from Guwahati. If there's something in Siliguri, then that will first show up. So that's the way it is designed. And we have found that over last, this was inaugurated about 10th of July by Honorable Minister for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. And over last just 3 months, it's been able to provide job offers to almost 492,000 people. And there are about 900 industry, which is currently attached to it. Our aim is to increase that number, maybe take it to about 10,000 in the coming 1 year. And we do believe that this will ensure matching which is suitable for both sides, the demand side as well as supply side. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Manishji. Thanks for explaining about ASEEM and also about how AI is being used for the entire thing, including creating QPs and how the role matching, etc., is being done. I think it's very interesting, and it's early days, as you rightly said, but getting this kind of traction from the industry as well as learner. And looking at the data, I think probably what we also need to see is how AI can play a larger role also in trying to understand. There's a whole lot of data sets available today. The training of AI engines, etc., also is very, very important in the right manner, and ensuring that responsible AI is being maintained. So on that segue, let me move on to you, Indrani, and try to understand, what's Microsoft's viewpoint on responsible AI for learning, as well as what is your advice to companies that work on AI-based app, especially in creating solutions for education. So over to you, Indrani.
Yeah, thanks, Shrikant. At Microsoft, we've actually recognized 6 principles that we believe should guide the AI development as well as. And these principles are cornerstone of.
As well as, what is your advice to companies that work on AI-based app, especially in creating solutions for education? Over to you, Indrani.
Thanks, Shrikant. At Microsoft, we've actually recognized 6 principles that we believe should guide the AI development as well as. And these principles are cornerstone of.
As well as, what is your advice to companies that work on AI-based app, especially in creating solutions for education? Over to you, Indrani.
Thanks, Shrikant. At Microsoft, we've actually recognized 6 principles that we believe should guide the AI development as well as. You see something in the past. These principles are cornerstone of.
As well as, what is your advice to companies that work on AI-based app, especially in creating solutions for education?
Not sure why this is going on in a loop. Can we, organizers can take care of it, please?
You see something in the past. Principles are cornerstone of. I don't know what to do right now. Sorry, there's an audio.
AI-based app, especially in creating solutions for education.
Not sure why this is going on in a loop. Can we, organizers can take care of it, please?
You see something in the past. Prashant also here. Hey, I'm so sorry for this. I just don't know what happened, and can I start all over again? Or? Okay, sorry. So basically, what I was saying is that Microsoft we actually recognize 6 principles that we believe should be the cornerstone of AI development and use. And this is towards responsible AI. And basically, what I wanted to talk about these 6 principles and contextualize it for how any provider of services or solutions for the education vertical should keep in mind, because the consequences of not following this could be really adverse. So the first principle is fairness. So AI systems should treat everyone fairly, right, to avoid affecting similarly situated groups of people in different ways. So let's consider an example in the education vertical. Students need loan. You have an algorithm of who took more loans in the past, and if on the basis of historical data we see that only the male students are getting loan and the female students don't get loan because the system is taking the historical data point as a reference point, then it's not fair. So I guess people who are developing the situations have to look at the fairness component and say, hey, can we take the algorithm to see who has repaid the loans, who have taken versus repaid, and not basically a gender bias on just the historic data. The second one is around reliability and safety. And to build trust, it's critical that AI systems operate reliably, safely, consistently, under normal circumstances, and in unexpected conditions. So I think earlier somebody was talking about the driverless car. Today it's a reality. Tomorrow we will have driverless school buses. Can parents or even schools trust the lives of the little one if there is an iota of doubt on the safety, reliability, and consistency of the AI working behind the wheels? We cannot trust if these buses meet criteria under normal circumstances, it will work well, but if there is a narrow road or there is a power outage, then it will fail. So no, the guarantee has to be 100% at all circumstances. The third one is privacy and security, and this becomes all the more important because AI plays on data. It takes a lot of information on the personal profile of the user, it analyzes, it transforms the data, and hence all AI systems should be actually complying with the privacy laws of the country that requires transparency about the collection, use, storage of data. And in fact, it should give the users the choice whether they want that data to be exposed for the purpose that could be used by that agency. So, for example, I wouldn't want that if I have given my data as a student for admission, it's being used for marketing purposes for some other event. Third is inclusiveness, and I think I answered to a large extent in the last one also. We firmly believe that everyone should benefit from the intelligent technology, meaning it must incorporate and address a broad range of human needs and experiences. And these days, any technology, whether it's Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, there are a lot of cognitive services built into the AI capability, the natural language processing, the text-to-speech, computer vision, that thus provide equal learning opportunity to people with hearing or vision impairment. Those are just 2 examples of it. The last 2 are the transparency and accountability. When AI systems are used for decisions that have tremendous impact on people's life, it is critical that people understand how these decisions are made, and the people who design and deploy the AI system must be accountable for how the systems operate. And let's take the case of AI-based algorithms that are used for decisions such as admission. The developers of the solution should take accountability, and the system should be transparent on the assessment criteria, as a single mistake can cost the student an entire academic year. So, those are the 6 principles, and we really take it close to heart. And what I said was contextualize it for the education vertical, but we do that for any vertical solutions that we or our partners develop for our customers.
Thanks, Indrani, and thanks for highlighting those cases. And in fact, everyone knows, when it's again the old principles about 3 decades ago when we were doing computer programming and all that, we used to talk about a concept called as GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, or gold in, gold out. And that's where the data sets would play a very, very important part. And if you look at the Tesla automated car, autonomous car driving accident that happened was very simple. It was trained for the highways, and when a truck came from the side, it couldn't recognize it and couldn't apply the brakes. So yes, training the system also is of key importance. But Manav, let me move on to you now with the question and look at learning itself. You know, education, teacher-led, boring, AI-led, interesting. But how does AWS help in enhancing digital learning experience using AI for the learner? If you could throw some light on that too.
Absolutely, Shrikant. So I spoke about AWS programs and I spoke about AWS services for the educator. Now let's move to AWS devices as AI/ML services for enhancing digital learning experience for teaching complex AI/ML techniques. In fact, in a fun way. So AI for learning AI. And these are devices that you can actually buy on Amazon, just like you can buy Echo or Kindle on Amazon. So the first device is called AWS Deep Racer. Again, I encourage you to go have a look at search for these devices on Amazon. So this is a device where student developers of all skill levels can get hands-on with machine learning through cloud-based 3D racing simulator. This is a fully autonomous 1/18th scale race car about this size, driven by reinforcement learning. And there's also a global racing league where students can compete with each other and at the same time learn a complex ML topic, which is reinforcement learning. The second device is really cool. That's my favorite. It's called AWS Deep Composer. It gives developers a creative way to get hands-on literally with a musical keyboard. And latest machine learning techniques can be applied, like generative AI models. So while you're creating music, the device can actually create music based on what you're creating. And that's again to expand your ML skills in one of the hottest topics in machine learning and AI. And then finally, there's a device which has a lot of applications. A number of nonprofits have used this device. A number of educational institutions and government organizations have used this device. It's called AWS Deep Lens. It's about the size of a palm. It's a computer in itself, machine learning inbuilt. And you can give it to the students, and they can literally have a fully programmable video camera, tutorials, code, pre-trained models designed to expand their deep learning skills. So these three devices actually explore some of the advanced areas of machine learning, reinforcement learning, generative AI algorithms, and deep learning skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Manav. I think that was very interesting. And apologies to the viewers and for the technology glitch that happened. I thought Murphy wanted to ask a question himself. So we have question time for about 2-3 questions. So I'll just take up the questions now from the audience. The first question is by Prasanta Kumar, who's asking, sir, my question is, how AI can be used by the teacher for record keeping and classroom management and as per the teaching procedures? So who'd like to go for this? Hello? Yeah, Indrani, would you like to go for it?
Sure. So again, AI is used for actually automating much of the mundane tasks, and then there are, again, it's a huge technology at the back end, and it can be done through a no-code, low-code version of AI technology because we have tools that are there. But just to answer your question, is anything which can be automated, the data has to be there at the back end, and the data can be trained the way that you will input some data, the output that you want to expect, you put in that kind of a data, and the machine will learn. So you have to do an investment of lot of data should be available for you to get the output that you want. Again, it's not a rocket science, but it is available. All the processes, as I just talked about, it has to be reliable, it has to be secure, it has to be consistent. all that design principles need to be kept in mind by the data scientists who are using this, or the data engineers who are ingesting the data and coming up with a more compliant automated process, if that answers the question.
Probably just to add to that, what I would like to also mention over here is that today, if you look at it, one of the major things is the attendance, the registers, etc. So there are systems, AI-based facial recognition systems, which are existing through which attendance kinds of mundane activities also can be taken off. There are systems which would, after a particular period of time, automatically take a snap and identify who are the students in the class and take care of it. A lot of examination related things we have already spoken about. All these things can be done. And of course, whatever is being taught these days is mostly on an LMS. So through that also, tracking and record keeping and classroom management can be done using AI. Moving on to the next question, is recommendation engines used by learning websites based on past courses to suggest new courses quite useful? Does it bring singularity and let the user lose on other areas which they are surrounded by similar course ads? So before I throw this question to the floor, I would just like to mention one thing over here. And in case you have not seen this movie, please go and have a look at this movie called Social Dilemma. And that's where you will realize as to what AI can do and what is actually being done even by some of the large social media organizations today. Who would like to take a shot at this one, please?
So I could probably give a relevant example here. So recommendation technology is quite evident when you're searching for, let's say, a book on Amazon website, right? It will suggest people who read this book or who bought this book also like these books. So that's recommendation technology in action. And we are doing it at scale with hundreds of millions of users visiting Amazon website, matching hundreds of millions of product listings in real time. Now, this technology is available in the hands of academia if through a recommendation web service that AWS offers. But having said that, it's really looking at it from the perspective of augmenting the overall learning experience. So rather than just rely on the recommendation engine to recommend content to you, you may want to augment it with other capabilities like search, for instance.
Sure. Shalini, would you also like to add something to it, please?
Yeah. So I would suggest that, recommendation systems and the way you are envisaging one should not, get lost in the clutter of ads, because definitely mapping a user's profile and recommending to them as to what is the next course, it has a lot of power into it. Because there are a lot of so there are standards. I mean, there are some things which are standards, like the courses are connected to each other. The other part is a teacher's recommendation. So a lot of students want to follow the recommendation of a teacher, not of a system. So I know that the teacher of say IIT Kanpur is the best teacher in mechanical engineering. I want to follow that teacher. So if the recommendation system is one which is taking the inputs from a teacher, then that recommendation system I want to believe in, right? So there are recommendation systems where and we are working with the government to put in those kind of systems where the teacher becomes an assistant in the recommendation system, and it will be a bunch of teachers, the best physics faculty, for example, the best civil engineering faculty. They'll kind of pool and we use their knowledge to start recommending you. So the power of recommendation system is very high if we just remove the clutter of ads.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question, and the last question that can be there is, can AI be utilized for social enterprise to monitor plantation, forestation, measuring categories of trees? And probably, it's quite different than whatever our panel is, but yes, Would one of the panelists like to take it up?
I could, because we have done at Microsoft, there is AI for agriculture. So there is enough and more evidence and real-time evidence of taking it to the farms to see, acres and acres of land, the effect of temperature, the moisture, and therefore what should be the level of pesticides that should be coming in, or what is the level of manures or whatever fertilizers that should be putting in. So it is a reality. It's not that whether we can, it is happening today. So you may want to look at AI for agriculture at Microsoft side. You get a lot of use cases and all to us.
And I would also like to add here, we work on a lot of weather forecast models. Actually, weather.com is an IBM company. We bought that company, and we work on forecast models, and we have remote sensing satellites through which we find out that whether the large area is arid, does it need more irrigation, what is the crop sensitivity on that. So we map the we map the remote sensing to actual local sensing through IoT sensors, and we create forecast models for vegetation management. And then we also, in fact, work with utility companies, because utility companies, when they have to lay down power lines, they have to actually clear a lot of trees and those areas. So we do have vegetation management forecast models in place in our weather business solutions to help organizations do that. So there is a lot of work and forestation. There are sensors. There is a lot of open data sets available, by the way, in this remote sensing satellites, which tell about regions, and they do NVDI analysis of whether this area is dry or and temperature, and what we should do about it. So there is a lot of work, and I would encourage you to also look at open data sets.
Absolutely, and using drones, multiple marine technologies today, the emerging technologies, I think, and definitely with AI and ML being at the core of it, a lot of solutions can come up. The last question that is being asked, and I've been requested to take this question, please, is by Muneen Sharma, who's asking how learning outcomes may be re-engineered to human development outcomes. Dr. Yasmin and Dr. Manish, in case both of you could, answer this.
I'm not sure what you mean by re-engineering of learning outcomes. What we need is a way of really evaluating the learning outcomes and then linking them back to the type of tools and methods that have been used, so that we have what shall I say, proof of concept of the various ways of learning, whether it's digital learning or blended learning or pure classroom learning, what leads to the best outcome in terms of learning and the application of that learning. So I think it's really, how do we set up from the start this journey of understanding and not blindly just accepting that it happens. So that's where I think technology does have a strong role to play. But it also means, you talked about garbage in and garbage out. Bias in and is bias out. So how we design the tools, how we train the tools, how we use the data so that it takes away any bias related to gender, to location, to language, to anything we want to think of, so that all children and young people have equal opportunities. I think that's a really important part of whatever we do. Unless we reach those who need it the most, it will remain only among a few who can afford to do so.
Manishji?
Yeah, maybe I'll add a little bit on this particular question. The linkage between AI and development, if you look human development, if you look at that, can easily go haywire if you're not careful. And one of the reasons why I think the word responsible AI is used is because of that realization that AI on itself, when you look at it purely as a technology, is good. Yeah, it will actually enhance your productivity, is going to increase. But when you look at equity, when you begin to look at people at different strata of income, it's going to impact different people differently. And this is a global trend that's occurring, for a while, if you look at data from 1920, the rate of return to capital and rate of return to labor, I'm just comparing two data, you'll find from 1920 onwards up to 1990s, both of them increase in a slope which is similar. They're like you are producing, you're sharing with the labor, so there's a kind of sharing which is occurring, and you go together up to 1990s when suddenly technology changes occur hugely because internet has come, digital platforms are being created, and then you find rate of return to technology, rate of return to capital is actually going up, very sharply up. Rate of return to labor has flattened in a way, and is actually going down in some countries, which is worrisome. So essentially it implies that with AI going up, good for the human society, but we have to be mindful about the equity aspect of it. And the fact that people talk about universal basic income and various other things are issues that we will have to at some point begin to deliberate on. So when you compared AI with human development, I think that's a very powerful connection which is important for us to reflect on and think about as you go ahead.
Right. Thank you very much. Just to conclude, I would like to say learning in India has opened up and will continue to open multiple avenues thanks to the AI intervention. It could be a difficult road for the nation to achieve targets under SDGs on quality education without harnessing this superpower, often believed to be the new electricity of the 21st century. Also, an AI-skilled workforce will be crucial for India in case it wants to become a US $5 trillion economy by 2024. On that note, I would like to thank all my esteemed panelists for sharing their expertise, experience, insights with us today. Thanks to all the participants for taking out time and attending this session. Now it's over back to our gracious host, Sri Jaideep Mishraji, Joint Secretary.
Thanks, Shrikant ji, for moderating the session and engaging the panelists, as well as all our remotely participating viewers. And I'm very happy that despite this IPL season and our remote participants throwing in some googlies, our panelists were able to handle them very well. So congratulations to all of you. And the panel discussion has been extremely enriching and informative. Now we have a short demonstration. So I would like to invite Ms. Aditi Awasthi, the founder and CEO of Imbibe, to make a demo on AI in education. So over to Aditi, please.
Everybody, it's been really fun 2 hours listening to everybody talk about all of the different aspects of solutions that you're building and the way you look at AI. Hopefully this demo will bring to bear and make real a lot of the things that you've been talking about conceptually. I'm very proud to share that we've been a RAISE Award winner in the EdTech category. For India, we've recently been inducted as a global innovator by the World Economic Forum. This is Imbibe, and this is actually Reliance Industries' EdTech platform. They invested about $200 million in our company about 2 years ago, and we are racing ahead to build the future of India using EdTech. So there are going to be two parts to this demo. The first is going to be a canned video, and then I want to sort of talk about 3 or 4 slides that are an extension of the demo, which address some of the core issues that the esteemed panelists brought up during the course of your conversation. So without further ado, I would first like to play this quick video that gives you an overview of the platform, and then I will dive into a few slides. I'm going to try and keep the total to around 15 minutes, and hopefully, you will enjoy this. Welcome to Imbibe, the AI platform to create learning outcomes for the world. It's a product built with love. It's very, very important for us that all features which are relevant to education, learning, practicing, and testing are built to excruciatingly vivid detail with amazing interactive, engaging content that allows the student to maximize time spent on the platform as well as derive insane utility from the platform, and also allow us to collect data from deeper engagement. We have taken care to ensure that the curriculum is actually aligned to what is actually being studied in class and takes it one step further, where every activity becomes interactive and guided using artificial intelligence assistance at every single step. The data that we collect calibrates the students' concept mastery as well as their Imbibe score quotient, which gives us a sense of quality of learning as well as ability to prepare and appear on a test with great effectiveness as simultaneous variables. We support a bunch of test formats, and we've even worked with the National Testing Agency as one of our customers to deliver highly precise, calibrated tests with deep student feedback. The Imbibe platform has been created at the intersection of academic knowledge, data science, and behavioral science. These disciplines with actual data collection. Imbibe as a company was committed itself 7 years ago to open data collection by building a MOOC through which we have harvested a ton of data, and we have actually built finite state models to make sense of that data and delivered over billions of interventions and 500 million hours of total student engagement on the platform. All the content is further tagged to our knowledge graph, which is a national education policy ready rendition of content, which has converted the calibration of content into a gradeless experience. Sequencing learning is an experienced teacher problem. Using this knowledge graph as the intelligent on their own, the journey of what to study next becomes a solved problem at a very personalized level. Informing this knowledge graph and populating it with content is a very costly problem if you want to do it across every context for every child in the world. It was important for us to solve the content ingestion and the content generation problem to decrease the unit cost of content created. One thing to do is to solve questions on our own. The other is to engage and invite teachers and educators and bring their intellectual property onto the platform and give them an ability to leverage our tags for personalizing their content and their intellectual property collected over many, many years for their own students. Smart tagging helps them digitize the content as well as classify it. Another important problem is discerning the quality of content and also ensuring that learning becomes a sensor thinking problem. It's easy to understand the quality of a question once it's taken live. It's hard to understand the quality of a learning experience because more often than not, it is measured simply as pause and play, quite simply like a Netflix video. But how can the discernment of the effectiveness of a learning experience be similar to the discernment of the effectiveness of the engagement of a movie which is built for purely commercial or pleasure purposes? We've ensured that learning experiences are calibrated and available frame by frame, where we can go in and see the effectiveness of learning as well as engagement on
We are getting that your video is not playing. Can you share it? You have not shared your video as
very
yet.
soon on Ubos, which enable us to look at. Sorry, no, I did share the screen, right?
No, it's not showing.
I think maybe you'll have to replay it.
Let me just replay it because it's been playing for 3 minutes here. So I'm apologies if that has happened. So it did not start at all?
No, we could hear the audio, but the video screen was not shared actually.
No, I did actually share my screen. So let me just do this again. Apologies. This is not fun. Okay, is this better?
Yes, we can see now. Please play it again.
Yes, finally. All right. Welcome to Imbibe, the AI platform to create learning outcomes for the world. It's a product built with love. It's very, very important for us that all features which are relevant to education, learning, practicing, and testing are built to excruciatingly vivid detail with amazing interactive, engaging content that allows the student to maximize time spent on the platform as well as derive insane utility from the platform and also allow us to collect data from deeper engagement. We have taken care to ensure that the curriculum is actually aligned to what is actually being studied in class and takes it one step further, where every activity becomes interactive and guided using artificial intelligence assistance at every single step. The data that we collect calibrates the students' concept mastery as well as their Imbibe score quotient, which gives us a sense of quality of learning as well as ability to prepare and appear on a test with great effectiveness as simultaneous variables. We support a bunch of test formats, and we've even worked with the National Testing Agency as one of our customers to deliver highly precise, calibrated tests with deep student feedback. The Imbibe platform has been created at the intersection of academic knowledge, data science, and behavioral science. And it's very important to inform all three of these disciplines with actual data collection. Imbibe as a company was committed itself 7 years ago to open data collection by building a MOOC through which we have harvested a ton of data, and we have actually built finite state models to make sense of that data and delivered over billions of interventions and 500 million hours of total student engagement on the platform. All the content is further tagged to our knowledge graph, which is a national education policy ready rendition of content, which has converted the calibration of content into a gradeless experience. Sequencing learning is an experienced teacher problem. Using this knowledge graph as the intelligent backend of your in-classroom delivery or a student's consumption of learning on their own, the journey of what to study next becomes a solved problem at a very personalized level. Informing this knowledge graph and populating it with content is a very costly problem if you want to do it across every context for every child in the world. It was important for us to solve the content ingestion and the content generation problem to decrease the unit cost of content created. One thing to do is to solve questions on our own. The other is to engage and invite teachers and educators and bring their intellectual property onto the platform and give them an ability to leverage our tags for personalizing their content and their intellectual property collected over many, many years for their own students. Smart tagging helps them digitize the content as well as classify it. Another important problem is discerning the quality of content and also ensuring that learning becomes a sensor thinking problem. It's easy to understand the quality of a question once it's taken live. It's hard to understand the quality of a learning experience because more often than not, it is measured simply as pause and play, quite simply like a Netflix video. But how can the discernment of the effectiveness of a learning experience be similar to the discernment of the effectiveness of the engagement of a movie which is built for purely commercial or pleasure purposes? We've ensured that learning experiences are calibrated and available frame by frame, where we can go in and see the effectiveness of learning as well as engagement on a per frame level through a new technology that we are debuting very soon called Kubos, which enable us to look at every single object which is being used to create the Kubo as a distinct object tagged to some or the other node in the knowledge graph. Qualitative and quantitative feedback comes together and allows academicians to further refine this content. We would be very amiss if we don't think about Bharat when we build for India. This product is going to be available in 11 languages very soon. We have partnered with Reverie, which is an exciting AI platform for language translation, as well as built our own machine learning algorithms for language translation for all of the content, textual as well as video. Bringing this together for teachers is another very exciting application, which is content packaging, because you can create individual content elements, but then how do you create a great quality standardized test, which is what we did for the National Testing Agency, or how do you create simply a fantastic quality of concepts prevalent of the book, figure out, summarize and understand what are the distinct academic terms that are used, or generate questions from that book, or even extract questions line by line from the book, or generate questions from the book and then tag them to their corresponding concepts and difficulty level and so on and so forth. Taking this together with all this content, with the knowledge graph and all the data collected, we crunch millions of variables per kid to design a personalized achievement journey for every student. This personalized achievement journey lays emphasis to two specific items as knowledge. Because it's a very interesting thing that we have seen that 40% of learning outcomes comes from intent to participate in smart test taking. We're very proud to see these personalized achievement journeys to be effective, or like have been derived as effective to, in terms of their impact on student learning outcomes. We have seen improvements as high as 40 to 60%, in terms of base outlier, base sort of outcomes over large cohorts of students from the most unlikeliest of places, and in just 20 hours of engagement. We've built our own customized elastic search for education, which we are also extending to vernacular and voice use cases. We're bringing these products together for enterprise users and government users, as I mentioned before, like the national testing has. We've experienced 1 billion attempts just this season with this one particular customer that we work with very proudly for the government of India. There are tons of publications for the work that we've done. We've just been granted one of the world's first patents in empirically demonstrating learning outcomes creation as a model with statistically impacting behavior and knowledge. We're now part of the World Economic Forum's Global Innovator Community, the first edtech startup from India, and also very proudly a RAISE Award winner from yesterday. This has been an exciting journey. On behalf of all of Team Imbibe, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Great. So just moving on to the second part, which I will try and wrap up pretty fast, given that we overstayed our welcome on the other. We sort of bring this together. So one of the things that was talked about was the fact that how do you kind of balance?
Sorry, okay, you want to show something? Fine, please proceed.
So what I was saying is that there is a balance that is required between the curriculum today and the 21st century skills that actually make us effective as human beings. And I feel that transition starts with humbly acknowledging the fact that every single day, 260 million students in India spend 1.3 billion hours getting educated, which is roughly the same number as the total number of students in the world. So the first requirement for an edtech or AI and edtech company is to mainstream success for all of these guys going to school where the government is investing 42 rupees per day per child on average in public education. The second is to slowly transition them from looking at basic problem solving in math to actually becoming a problem solver in life. And this problem is to generate intelligent items using using AI-based content intelligence and human calibration, tagged to something like a knowledge graph or a social emotional learning graph in the back, which is able to give you multi-dimensional progress tracking for learning. Dr. Yasmin was saying something about how do you kind of, there was a question that the audience also asked, that how do you calibrate for learning outcomes in a core curriculum context versus in 21st century skills? The answer is the graph gives you both answers. That's how we look at it. The second thing is that this product is tagged to 34 pedagogical best practices in the world. There are many, many learning algorithms, and it is also something that is national education policy ready. Today, we are at 5+3+3+4. If you saw this big galaxy of concepts that I demonstrated to you, you can actually make it 8+2, you can make it continuous, you can abolish grades altogether. So, and we're already working, with a bunch of different governments. We're working with the NTA, we're working with NITI, we're working with a bunch of, entities to craft enterprise-based solutions, as well as working with private schools. So I just wanted to show you, how a teacher would sort of bring this together in a public school. So basic things to take care of in this. The first is related to, your, just one second. To your new, this for a second, and maybe I'll just talk through it. So the new education policy, which is how do you actually ensure that whatever is happening is adhering to that framework? So the knowledge graph powering content at the back end takes care of that. The second is a teacher curating and packaging tool that allows you to take all this content at an atomized level and put it together using algorithms for every child in the classroom. Using this, we've done the unthinkable. We've had tribal students in Rajasthan actually end up clearing the JEE paper when their district collector, when she brought on the Imbibe pilot, said, these kids have never even heard of engineering. So it is one AI content platform. In the center, you see students from Neemach, Madhya Pradesh. The picture that gets me excited is the tablet in the hands of every child, not just many children and a teacher in front of a computer, because the aim for this company is to make edtech-based personalization a mainstream event to define learning and life outcomes for all of the students of this country and beyond. So I think the thing that I would sort of urge everybody to look at is that don't look at edtech anymore as undergrad or K-12 or skilling or AI-based education, but let's think about learner centricity and think about the crafting of one human being or one individual, starting from zero, to lifelong learning on a singular graph where multiple interventions come to them around who they are as an individual, as opposed to them going to multiple different service providers where data and context is created and destroyed again and again. Because AI only does better with more data. So give it an opportunity to understand a user over life. So that's it from, Imbibe.
So thank you, Aditi. I think we were little constrained, seemed to be with the bandwidth. So the demo, I think the full impact was not felt by experienced by at least our side, but I'm sure, but we could see the lot of work that has been done and a lot of hard work has gone into it. So congratulations to you and your team on creating and developing this platform.
Thank you so much. It's our third demo during RAISE, and unfortunately, some bandwidth issue today. But it's such a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to interacting with everybody on this panel, even offline.
Yes, so thank you very much, Aditi. It was really very nice, and we also wish that the bandwidth was even better so that we could get the full impact of what you have created. But congratulations on our side. So this session, overall, we come to the end of this session, which has really brought out that by leveraging the best attributes of machines and teachers, the vision of AI in education is one, where we can all work together for the best outcome of the students, keeping a completely student-centric mind approach. So that is the best way in which we could move forward. And since the students of today will need to work in future where AI is a reality, it's important that our educational institutions expose students to and use the technology to the best possible use. So with this session, I think I would like to thank all the participants, all the speakers, moderator, on behalf of Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India, for taking center stage to make this session a great success. The ideas, thoughts, discussions shared in this session have been very enlightening, thought-provoking, and I'm sure will significantly assist in the policy making as well. We look forward to having several more such sessions in the future. So thank you very much to our two keynote speakers, Ms. Shalini and Prakash Malaya, also our moderator and the panel session, Mr. Shrikant, and our panel speakers, Dr. Yasmin, Dr. Manish, Ms. Indrani, Manav, and Ms. Aditi for the demo on how we can leverage AI for learning. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants who have joined this session and interacting to the best possible in the present times, whatever is possible, and asking very interesting and difficult questions, as I had said earlier. So thank you all for making this a big success, and namaskar from all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jaideep. Thank you.
So much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.